And we're back. Welcome back, everyone. Craig and Jonah here today. How are you, Jonah?
Pretty good.
Want to talk about porn today?
If you want to.
Not really. Seems like someone needs to, though.
Yeah.
You got anything, any stories that can lighten the mood before we plunge ourselves into the dragon's mouth?
Nope, I don't. So,
well, I have some. So, I think we're on the cusp of menopause.
okay.
So, everything's a little wonky.
So, what does that look like as far as?
Just weird cycles, short cycles, longer menstrual type stuff. Not sure.
Uncharted territory?
Yeah, we are. And she's kind of getting tired of it already. And I said, well, if you do the math, I said, if we just pop out one more kid, you get through that, and by the time you might just sail off into the promised land at that point in time. She didn't bite. So,
well, you can always try.
I think I'm a little nervous about us getting through this without a surprise. So we'll see, because things are really wonky. So,
well, good luck to you. The Marquette method will hold up there, maybe.
Yeah, or you might have a real grumpy Craig for a lot of. So.
Grumpy Craig makes good content.
That's right. That's just here for
people don't like to see happy guys. The train wrecks are what people come for.
Yeah. So, yeah, we should have some good train wreck content coming up here.
We can look forward to that.
Yep. So, porn.
I have no firsthand experience.
Yeah, neither do I.
In fairness,
I wouldn't even know where to find it, really.
I haven't watched any video like that. You see it on Twitter sometimes, but I have not deliberately watched anything in years and years. I don't even know the last time. Yeah,
I'm still like the paperback guy. You find it hidden at the park or whatever, someone else's. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah,
we didn't. Fortunately or unfortunately, we didn't have cell phones growing up as kids and internet and stuff like that. So
yeah, back in the old days, it had to be glossy.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Yeah, one of my classmates, his brother, found a bunch of magazines at the dump. And that's where.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know, the first time that I ever saw it, I don't know, it must have been like in 6th grade, maybe, or whatever, but I had no idea what it was.
So I'll reveal a little bit here for people. First time I ever ran across it, I was at a park at a different town with some friends playing. Actually, it was like a family picnic, so it was us and some other families playing ball, and we wandered past this garbage can. Someone peeked in and was like, "Hey, look at this!"
It's like something from a coming-of-age movie.
Yeah, right. And I'm just imagining some person like me, like some guy that had a habit, and I'm done with this. Throws it in the garbage can, and now some kids find it. So I was young, and
so was it a bunch of magazines, or
it was like two dirty magazines, and I'm thankful because I was young enough. I didn't really know what to do with it. Like I don't know, we snuck it home, but I knew my dad would kill me if he ever found him, even though I wasn't sure why.
So you snuck one of the magazines home?
Yeah.
Oh man.
So then we hid it.
You saw the value in that.
I guess I was old enough to see the value. I don't know. Snuck it home, and then we hid it down at the. There was a little park shelter down the street from our place, and there was kind of a little hiding spot up in the rafters. So me and my friends would ride down our bikes and peek through it, and then someone else found it and took it. So it just maybe it's still making the rounds somewhere. I don't know. Probably a little
roughed up magazine.
Probably a little. You might want to. Yeah. So
the first time I ever remember looking through a magazine for boobs, though, was actually looking through National Geographic.
Good old days, right?
Yep, it's true. So I got a huge somebody gave me their collection of National Geographics, and so that's what you look for.
And
I learned a lot of other things too.
Well, and what's weird about it is, like, I mean, I don't know how to say it. Like, I was very sexually ignorant, so I didn't really know what you're supposed to do with it, other than it was interesting to look through. Like, nothing really. Again,
you saw the attraction.
I saw the attraction, but it was more like, I don't know, boyhood curiosity than anything else. And so, thankfully, it's not like it. Like I said, then eventually it disappeared, and then I never, then I got to the point where I knew why that stuff would be wrong, and I just never really became a problem.
So did a lot of people know about this secret hiding spot then?
I'm guessing one of my buddies told some of his buddies and stuff, and word got around.
The secret was too good to keep contained.
Yeah. So, now I'm very thankful someone else found it before I, started looking at him any more than we did. And so, I mean, I don't know. So that was sort of my very limited exposure as a kid, other than watching a movie and having a naughty scene show up. But I don't know. Can't really do much with that. I mean,
it's funny, looking back on my college experience too, some of my roommates had huge stacks of these magazines. It's a lot of money. I don't know how much they cost even, but I'm sure it wasn't cheap.
Well, I know when I was a kid,
the internet was just coming around.
Right. So. Well, even at the grocery store, they would be in the magazine section. Now they'd have they cover up everything but the name, but you could buy it right in the grocery store aisle.
That is funny.
I think it was pretty common when we were growing up for most men to have a stash of it somewhere.
It's probably true. I don't think my dad did. I'm positive.
I don't know about, because I'm sure the heck not going to ask my dad about it. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I could ask my dad about it, but I'm positive he didn't. As a kid, I don't know what age this begins, but you start checking every nook and cranny of the house for different things. At least I did.
Yeah, I knew people where they had found their dad's stash and whatever, and I don't know. My dad became super religious when I was about 12 or 13, so this happened before that. And so at that point in time, there's no way he was going to have any of that around. And while he never really said, I mean, I think I more or less figured out why I was wrong, why I would be wrong to do that stuff. It was more the fear that he just put the fear of God in me, that I would just be pummeled if I ever got caught with something like that I just never even tried.
That's why you got to hide it in the shelter house.
Yeah, right. I had, you ever get Sports Illustrated as a kid?
Yeah.
So then the swimsuit edition came out.
I was the most popular guy on the bus ever. I got I was a subscriber, but my parents let me have it even.
My parents, I was too poor to afford Sports Illustrated, so I got Sport. Do you remember Sport?
Oh man, vaguely.
Sport was kind of a knockoff, and instead of coming out every week, it came out every month. And so I got Sport when I was a young teenager, and they had a swimsuit edition too, which I didn't know when I got the subscription, and obviously my parents didn't know when I got the subscription. I can still remember being out the mailbox grabbing and saying, "Oh, well, this is an interesting bonus." It found its way in the back part of my trumpet case for a long time. So,
and then held on to that, then eventually got rid of it.
Yeah. When we became religious, I was like, yeah, I can't have this stuff around.
One thing that is kind of funny is that when I was 18 and I went to college, I'd actually got a Blockbuster video card. When I was 17, probably in high school or whatever, and it had my parents' mailing address on there. And for whatever reason, my girlfriend and I at the time rented a movie I think it was entitled Illicit Dreams, or like it had some kind of, title like that. And it was
Theological film?
It was definitely. Yeah. And we didn't return it on time.
Oh.
And so my mom got the late notice in the mail for like this, suggestive titled movie. And she called me up to tell me that it was late. She's like, I don't really want to see it, but your dad might be interested in it.
Oh, no.
But yeah, I was pretty embarrassed. But my parents, I was 18 and they didn't give me a hard time about it. What are you going to do? I mean, at that time, like those kind of movies that I don't think Blockbuster had a real, adult section. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but, I mean, like I said,
it was probably like an NC-17. I don't even know.
Yeah, just a lot of that is. Google this. A lot of it, I think, is. I still remember my dad. When I was a teenager, when my parents became super religious, and my brother and I kind of were following along. I had seen, like, I knew the movies that had the short sex scenes in them, or the short nude scenes. Before my dad did, and I remember being really uncomfortable watching. And I remember one time we were up at my grandparents' place, and we were watching Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase, and there's the pool scene.
Yeah,
yeah. And I saw it coming. I left. I was like, I'm getting out of the room.
You couldn't even sit there with your dad for the pool scene?
No, I was like, I know how this is going. All my cousins and stuff are there, and my dad went berserk and he lunged in front of the television and pulled the cord out and
over that. Wow, that's intense. You're right. He would have been really mad about
that. Watching a new movie with my dad was really uncomfortable if I didn't know whether something was going to come up, because it became really uncomfortable really fast.
I know somebody that watched American Pie with their parents by accident, and they were the kind of family that could handle that, but said it was quite uncomfortable.
I watched Titanic the first time with a couple of priest friends. That was a little uncomfortable. Not as uncomfortable as being there with my dad, though.
They didn't lunge at the TV during the drawing scene?
No, everyone just kind of like... I just sat there uncomfortably until the scene was over. But that
was... Yeah, that was actually one of the first times I saw boobs in a movie. Actually, I was with my girlfriend at that movie, and
I saw it with priests. So
that's funny. We had two different experiences there. She cried into my Letterman's jacket during the movie. I remember. That's so funny.
Yeah, the stuff here. So I know we're making light of this a little bit, and it's sort of a serious topic, but it's. I don't know what we're supposed to do about this stuff, because it's out there, and it's a much easier for young men and women, but especially young men, to find this stuff rather than, like I said, just sort of happenstance, like when we were kids, or in the detail that's available now is much more
4K.
Yeah. than what we were exposed to as kids. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is that, at least on Twitter, the issue has been making the rounds the last few days, and it's really, really hard to have.
That's what she said. Sorry, couldn't resist.
It's okay. I'm slow this morning. It's really hard to have a kind of a useful conversation about this stuff.
Because what's the argument on Twitter?
So the argument on Twitter, what sort of the stage for the argument on Twitter is some guy basically argued that,
named the Uncharted Father, right?
Yeah,
which is kind of funny.
I think that's kind of getting kind of in our space there a little bit, guy. So I'm not going to post it, but the thrust of it was,
To use another funny term.
yeah, he was more or less arguing that men use porn because their wives are not
Enthusiastic,
fulfilling
available.
that need
Yeah.
or whatever in their life. And he was he was met with just a lot of resistance from all sides.
I suppose you got the Crusaders with the knight costumes coming
Oh yeah.
out. Yeah.
Yep. And I would say most of the vast majority of the Catholic women were very upset by what he said.
The pearl clutching, everything like that.
Yeah, and you know, because and this is a real delicate subject, because I struggle with how to like try to thread this needle without getting tarred and feathered out of the deal. But I think we need to acknowledge a few things. I think we need to acknowledge that it does happen. It's actually a pretty common problem.
Yeah, I mean, high 90% of guys watch porn to begin with.
Yeah. And maybe that number is lower, quite a bit lower in Catholic marriages, but I
don't think so.
And I think if you ask a priest in the confessional, I think he'll probably tell you that it's a frequently confessed sin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the opposition to this guy's statement was more or less along the lines that this is a horrible, despicable thing, which fine, okay. It has nothing to do with the wife. It has nothing to do with the quality of the marriage. And some people are saying the only guys that do it are guys that had an addiction problem before they got married, which I don't know that that's necessarily true. There's not a lot of good data out there, I think, on that. But the point, I kind of stuck my neck out there a little bit and just said, well, look, I support the arguments against it, and guys shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. But I said,
good for you.
Yeah,
naughty.
I really took a stand there, right? But I said, it does happen, and it probably happens in a much higher frequency than people are really thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I know, because I hear from a lot of guys. I talk to a lot of guys that share things with me that they probably, I know they don't share with their wives. And I said, if a guy is struggling with that and he wants to stop, I think you can be really confident he's not going to share any of that with his wife, and maybe he shouldn't.
It's a bold move.
But just so you know, if it's happening, he's trying to deal with it in secret and quiet, and maybe he's fortunate enough to find some close friends that will support him in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a good chance it's going to be a recurring problem for him, because this is something he feels like he has to keep a secret from his spouse.
Yeah, and I mean, is it totally the woman's fault if the guy is watching porn? No.
Mm-hmm.
But could her behavior contribute to it? Sure. I mean, and I'll just give you the stats quick. So I was wrong in the 90 percentile. It is basically, in the secular world, it is 80% of men watch porn. And then I found a different article about how many Catholic men watch porn, and 4 out of 5 Catholic men confess this sin. So that's also 80%. So I don't think it's really that. It's not that much different.
Yeah. So you will find plenty of men, especially on Catholic social media. I think even Christopher West puts him in this category as a guy that had a real problem with this as a teenager. But anyone that talks about this is going to talk about it as a former addict.
Mhm.
And a lot of them are like, I think, had legitimate addictive habits.
Mhm.
And they tend to be the loudest opponents to it and the most unempathetic
Yeah.
people. Um, and so you have created this environment where I think, how do I say this? I think there's this tendency to overstate how bad it is.
Now you're getting in the gray area.
God, this is
Sound
really,
the
I'm
alarm.
very uncomfortable right now because I just know what the comments are going to be.
The problem is, so the guy, one of the reasons that a guy might look at that is that he wants to see a happy woman, a fulfilled woman.
Yeah.
And if that isn't happening at home, you can
Yeah.
search for that. It's not like the guy really wants that woman or whoever he's watching. I think that's a fair point. Like that isn't really, at least maybe I'm overthinking it, or maybe I'm not understanding the way that most guys would look at it. But I think most guys just want to see a happy woman that's fulfilled.
I think the point that the Uncharted Father was trying to make maybe is the men that do that are trying to fulfill something that they would they would like to see fulfilled by their wife. Now,
yep, I think
right.
That's fair.
Now,
I don't think anybody can really argue with
right.
that.
And I'm not here saying his argument has merit or is defensible, and I think this is a really, really key point of distinction that people I think that I think gets lost entirely in the conversation. Is it's one thing to talk about why things happen, and it's another thing to say it's justifiable that things happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think those are two different things, and people think that if you talk about why things happen, you are in essence providing a defense for it, and that's not what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can identify why something happens without condoning the behavior. But when you mirror that, you make it really difficult to identify the underlying problem, the underlying causes of this stuff. And this is why I think a lot of men just never really get over it. Because one person on Twitter, first, I would say a very well-respected, I like her content, well-respected Catholic wife said, if a husband's doing that, he'll be a cheater eventually.
I don't think that's true. That's unlikely.
So, if a husband is married to someone who has that viewpoint, you could be guaranteed he's not going to tell her about it. He's going to
for sure. Right? And he might be watching that in secret.
Yeah. Yeah. So he
might continue it, is what I'm saying.
How do we have conversations about it? And again, I personally think that the circumstances of the marriage, and this isn't true for, you can have some real pigs that are never going to be happy with, things at home. But I think the guys that either fall into that or fall back into that, whatever best describes them, are going to be less resistant to that. I think they're going to be more likely to fall into that when things are going poorly in the relationship and they feel unloved and lonely or whatever. That's just, I think that's absolutely true.
So whenever this has come up in conversation with Catholic guys that I know even, and they'll admit to watching that, the comment that comes afterwards is always, well, it doesn't happen at home, so what am I supposed to do? Like, that's the comment, And I think in a guy's mind, it's like, I understand where he's coming from. The more intimate your relationship is, I think the less tempting it is to watch some other woman that's obviously fake. But if you have nothing going on in the bedroom, it scratches some kind of itch.
Yeah. And maybe
doesn't make it right.
Maybe that it's just concupiscence. I don't know. But I just think it's so. I made the comment. I tried to make
concupiscence.
Yeah.
It's possible.
I tried to make the comment that this can happen even to good men in good marriages. And I got a lot of pushback. They're like, by definition, you're not a good man, and you don't have a good marriage if you're doing
well, yeah, right. I mean, they don't even know what's happening. This is a private sin in general, and that people don't discuss unless you're really good friends with them. And most guys would be afraid to talk about it with other women and their wives.
Yeah.
Only their confessor knows, more than likely.
Yeah, and in talking to guys that have to bring this up in confession, my impression from them is that they don't really get beat up bad. I mean, the priest doesn't say, "Attaboy, go do it again," but isn't like berating them over and over again. I mean, I think the priests tend to recognize it as something that is common, and says, try to do better, maybe practice some fasting and stuff like that. But it's
it's not treated like it's adultery.
Exactly. I think if a guy came in and said, "I cheated on my wife with my neighbor's wife,"
that's a different confession.
I would like to think the priest's advice or admonition to that guy is going to be a little different than the guy. But here's the problem. If you watch stuff either on Twitter or the Christopher West folks or whatever, they will not make a distinction between those two things.
When there obviously is a distinction.
When there's obviously a distinction, a practical distinction. And I think that I personally think that is a real problem in the church, in that we can't make those kinds of distinctions and recognize that one is obviously worse than the other.
But since they're both considered
grave matters, one, each one of them committed is mortal sin if done with knowledge and consent, and which fine. I can follow the intellectual argument, but on a practical level, everyone understands there's a difference there. I think it's even worse when you'll see people say, a man that does that has already committed adultery, and I just think
it's a little different. I mean,
yeah,
I mean, it is.
Sure seems like it. And again, I know we're going to get berated for even talking about it in these terms, but the atmosphere is so hostile to having any kind of a reasonable conversation about this. Like I think what we're talking about, I think you poll someone in secret, they would agree with us
for sure. It's not even that controversial.
There's nothing controversial about what we're saying, right?
If you watch porn, go to confession. I mean, but it's not exactly the same as committing adultery either, as far as
if you're doing that, don't go cheat on your wife. Like don't take it to the next level.
I would bet that the porn doesn't really have an influence over whether or not they're going to cheat.
I mean, I certainly think that it can become an addictive bad. I think especially like porn is a very dangerous thing amongst teenagers and stuff like that. I think it absolutely can warp your perspective, and even married men, let's say, that are just dabbling in it. I think it is definitely a hazardous thing. But I think most men could take it or leave it. Like I said, I think if things changed in how they felt at home, I think a lot of men could fairly easily just turn that switch off. Here's the example that I was thinking about yesterday that I think might help people understand this a little bit. Because kind of getting back to what the uncharted father said, he suggests that men that do that because they, feel like they're being deprived at home or something like that. I think, like I said, I think men that feel that they are undesired or unwanted by their spouses, whether it's true or not,
Hmm.
are going to be much more at risk of doing that than someone that feels like they are loved and have those kind of needs fulfilled at home. And again, it's not whether it's true or not. It doesn't mean that he's not loved or not desired, but if he feels that way, he's going to do that. Now, how many times are we told that, like, it's how I feel matters, right? And I was thinking about I think there's a lot of wives especially that don't particularly feel good about themselves, don't necessarily have a great body image, especially after you've had children. And I
Just
think
are insecure.
I think they're
Whether that's
insecure.
real or not is a different story too.
And I think a lot of them, I think for the most part, most men still find their wives attractive even as we age and things change.
Absolutely, I think.
And no matter how much he tries to convince his wife otherwise, if she doesn't believe herself that she's attractive and
Hmm.
desirable, she's going to think of herself as unattractive and desirable, even though her husband thinks she's just as beautiful as ever, right? So it's that matter of perspective, and it doesn't her feeling that she's undesirable and unattractive is real. Like that feeling is real, even though in reality she's not unattractive, right?
Hmm.
I think this is sort of the flip side of that. I think this is the something that meant like they if they feel undesired or whatever, if they don't feel like their wife is pleased with them, whether it's true or not, whether she feels that way or not, if that's the way he perceives it, he's going to be at risk of that, right?
Hmm.
I don't know if that helps or not, but I think that is a. I just think I think that the circumstances in the climate at home absolutely are going to make a difference,
Hmm. I
and how
totally agree.
likely a man is to fall into that kind of stuff.
Hmm. I mean, the more intimate the relationship is, the more affectionate she is.
Hmm.
You know, I can only speak from the male perspective, but
Hmm.
I think the less likely it is to happen. And
Hmm.
I'm pretty certain that that's just the truth.
I mean, I think you could. I think you could put. I think that would at least partially explain a huge segment of the population, the Catholic male population, for example, that has any um, experience with these kinds of things. I think that would be true.
Hmm.
Now, the devil is in the details, of course. So, what does that mean? Now what I'm not saying, I'm not saying that the Uncharted father is right, and that he was basically saying wives need to be their husband's personal porn stars. Not saying that, but I just think it's important to understand how your spouse thinks and feels and reacts to different things in life. I think that men are rightly um, reminded a lot that they need to do a better job of this as it pertains to their wives. I don't know that that's always seen as a reciprocal thing.
Hmm.
It feels a little bit like a one sided perspective that men need to do better to understand their spouse's situation, but I don't necessarily see a ton of emphasis on the other way around.
Where women should focus on their husbands sometimes. I don't
Maybe,
know.
or at least if you feel that way about him, make sure he knows it.
Hmm. Yeah.
If you don't feel that way, I don't know what to tell you. But
Yeah. I mean,
if you're saying nothing, he's probably going to assume you don't find him attractive and desirable.
that's totally fair.
So if you do find him attractive, at least some of the time, let him know that.
Hmm.
That will go a long way, I think, for a lot of guys.
Definitely.
So, is it going to cure the porn problem? No, but I think it can make a dent in it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's unfortunate because I mean I think for most marriages, maybe all marriages, it's not going to be a positive thing for marriage. Now I know of couples that they they watch that stuff together and they seem to be happy and have a good marriage. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's anomalies. There's exceptions to everything. But I think this kind of doomsday emphasis on this stuff all the time, like taking it to this extreme level that if your husband is doing this, he's just one step removed from being a serial philanderer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that that's actually accurate or helpful.
I don't think so either.
So
it isn't reality. I don't think.
Yeah. I mean,
so we're not defending it.
No.
Oh, we're just saying that it's not, that thought process doesn't really reflect reality. No. Probably.
I think we just need to stay grounded in reality and identify the problem for what it is and not make it more than it is. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm saying. Like, don't.
Diane, please forgive us.
Yeah.
Pray for us. So I can just hear her comments.
Although it's funny you say that, because someone else on Twitter was posting one of her comments. There's apparently we're not the only recipients of her vigorous thoughts. She was on completely unrelated. I mean, more or less unrelated content. She had a very strong negative opinion for that person. Like, hey, I know that person.
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to say that the solution is just man up and pray the rosary more fervently or whatever. And I'm not discouraging anyone from doing that, obviously, but mm-hmm. I don't think it's as.
I think the more clear solution involves having a good relationship, and that takes work.
Yeah,
especially if you're not there.
Yeah, relationships are hard, especially after you've been together for a while. The kind of the honeymoon phase wears off, and now there's gonna be days
9 kids, and
there's just days you wake up and you hate each other's guts, and that's just the way it is, right?
And that does happen.
Yeah,
I mean, it does. You just gotta hope that it's short lived.
Yeah, and
things usually get better.
I think they do, but I think when the bottom kind of drops out of it, that is when I think most men are most vulnerable to that. I think it's far less likely that the guy is going to turn to that when things are just humming along and you're getting along and your intimate life is great.
Mm-hmm.
I just think for the most part, most men are.
The temptation occurs when things are bleak. I would agree with that.
So I don't think there should be anything super controversial about that, but
we'll see.
Yeah. So I don't know what here's what I will say. What I would like to see happen is for the men out there, understand if you're struggling with this, you're not alone. You need to stop it if you can. You need to pray about it, go to confession, do all that stuff, right? Find a circle of men, or at least a man that you can confide in and whatever, and maybe will support, be a good accountability partner. I would like to say it'd be something that husbands could bring to their wives and say, hey, I just want you to know what I'm struggling with. But I don't advise that.
If you want people to get divorced,
I don't advise that.
Go to your ultra traditional wife and tell her. I just know that's probably not going to go well.
Just you're walking up to your own execution there. So I guess for the wives out there, I just want I want you to understand that your husband may very well be struggling with this, or have struggled with it, or be at risk of struggling with it in the future. It does not mean that he doesn't love you, and that he, and it, again, not condoning it, just acknowledging that he's human, he's man. This is, for whatever reason, I think an issue that affects men far more than women. And if you've never really had to like even think about this, like you've never struggled with temptation to this, you just might not understand why in moments of weakness and difficulty, men might slip into this.
Around 20% of women watch porn as
Yeah.
well.
I mean, it's totally different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I don't know. I mean, I don't necessarily want all the women to go home and corner their husbands and ask if he's ever done that. But just understand that if this is something, ask yourself this: if my husband was secretly struggling with this, if I was in his shoes, is this something I would share with me or not? And ask yourself that. Be honest about it. What would your reaction be?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a good chance he already knows that, and if your reaction is going to be this, just realize he's not going to tell you. He's going to deal with it in secret, and that's a really I think that's a lonely place to be for people, because you know. So anyway, enough rambling about that. We've probably got ourselves in enough trouble for one day.
I don't know. It's just a realistic take, I think.
It's not. It's only going to get worse. I mean, we're just exposed to stuff more at an early age.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right here on your phone if you want it.
Just wait till we have the glasses where you can see it, and like we got the AI robots and all kinds of stuff coming.
Yep. So
it is only going to get worse.
Yeah, I think we have to. I think we have to confront it and be realistic about it, and not just, default back to the St. Alphonsus Liguori approach to life. I think it's probably what we need to do. Update our approach a little bit. So that's what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Don't shoot the messenger, please.
Love your wives and love your husbands.
Yes. And be humble, try to get better. And if and when you fall, you're not alone. Trust in God's mercy, to use Jonah's famous line.
Well, it's not mine, but yeah. I mean, it's true, though.
It's right in Wikipedia. You said it. So, okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, I hope people aren't too hot and bothered by that. It's a delicate subject, but it's a really
hot and bothered
important.
By porn.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope we can help advance things to a little more productive conversation about this stuff, and help people that are trying to avoid or trying to get out of it actually get out of it, because for most people it's not going to be a positive for your marriage. So
yeah, that's also true.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah. So all right. Okay, thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Jonah, and until next time, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good one.